Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review of Crossover, which is the 23rd episode of the second season of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. This video is a part of a series of videos I'm doing where I review episodes of Star Trek as suggested by you, the viewer. This episode was suggested by Atkin Tomko, whom I know because he's my brother. He actually has his own YouTube channel and is starting to do some Star Trek reviews. I'll put a link in the description below for a review he did recently on the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, so you should check that out as well. If there's an episode you would like to request, just leave a comment. It can be from any of the 5 Star Trek TV series, but 1 episode per person. So this episode is the totally unexpected sequel to the original series episode Mirror Mirror. In this episode, Kira and Bashir, while returning from the Gamma Quadrant in the runabout, encounter a strange phenomenon in the wormhole that causes them to enter a parallel universe in which we learn is the same parallel universe that Kirk and crew visited in the episode Mirror Mirror. We also learn that after Kirk's encounter with Spock from the Mirror Universe, Spock was successful in reforming the Terran Empire. However, this new, less militarized empire was overthrown by some of its more violent former subjugates, namely the Klingons and the Cardassians, which joined forces to form an empire known as the Alliance, to which Bajor is a member. So in this universe, Kira runs the space station orbiting Bajor, still known by its Cardassian name Terok Nor, and the humans are enslaved and forced to process ore much in the same way Bajorans were in our universe. Major Kira tries to negotiate with her counterpart, whom she starts to learn is insane, while Dr. Bashir is forced to work in the mines and tries to get help from a beaten, downtrodden slave named Miles O'Brien. A lot of Star Trek fans were hoping for some kind of sequel to Mirror Mirror for a long time. However, this episode is nothing like they expected. What they expected is something more along the lines of the Star Trek The Next Generation novel Dark Mirror, which depicted the Next Generation's crew's evil mirror universe counterparts. It was a lot more similar to the original series episode Mirror Mirror, but what we got instead was this episode, which was a lot different and more complex than simply repeating the plot of Mirror Mirror. Instead of just showing evil versions of the DS9 crew, they mix things up a bit and keep things consistent with the political dynamics involved in Deep Space Nine. Sisko is a slightly insane pirate. Kira is a ruthless station overlord. Odo is a nasty and controlling minion. Quark is a hero with a conscience trying to help out some humans. O'Brien is a broken man working in the mines. And Dax and Bashir alternates don't even appear in this episode. We'd eventually get the sequel to Mirror Mirror that was more like what we'd expect in the Enterprise 2-parter in the Mirror Darkly, but that was more of a prequel than a sequel, but semantics. Where Mirror Mirror was tense and filled with suspense, Crossover was also suspenseful, but a lot more dark and bleak than Mirror Mirror. Not to say Mirror Mirror wasn't dark, but this was different, as it portrayed the entire human race as being enslaved and Kira as a megalomaniac tyrant. There was such a level of tension throughout the course of this episode, much more than most other Star Trek episodes, where it really got the blood pumping like no other. However, this episode is similar in structure to Mirror Mirror. It's about some crew members who get stuck in the Mirror universe and try to find a way to return to their own universe while evading the evil inhabitants of this universe. And in escaping, they end up influencing the inhabitants of that universe that will set in motion political movements that will alter the course of history for that universe. However, where this episode differs, first of all, his main focus of this episode is not the captain, but the first officer, Kira. And this time she encounters her own counterpart, which didn't happen in Mirror Mirror, and that makes for a very interesting character study as Kira comes face to face with an evil version of herself that could have been her had history played out a little differently. The intendant the Intendant stands for everything Major Kira is against and is basically just a different version of Gul Dukat, a self-serving, egotistical dictator overseeing the enslavement and genocide of an entire people. However, from the start, you can see elements of Major Kira in the Intendant, such as kindness, when Kira insists to Garrick that the human who tried to escape not be put to death. However, we learn later in the episode this kindness streak isn't really genuine, and in fact is a lot closer to what Gul Dukat does, and commenting on occasional acts of leniency, and then later claiming he treated Bajorans kindly and they repaid him with resistance. The Intendant does the same thing at the end of this episode when Bashir and O'Brien tried to escape.
This is my reward for treating you Terrans with the least bit of respect. Very well. I can learn from my mistakes. You want to set an example, Garrick? Use him. Set an example for all Terrans. Let him die, slowly, in public view on the promenade. Let his pleas for mercy echo through the corridors for all Terrans to hear.
Making her even more like Dukat, Major Kira's arch nemesis. And the fact you do see elements of Major Kira in the Intendant makes it even more of a statement of how Major Kira could have ended up just like the man she thinks is the most evil. And she comes face to face with this, and this was performed beautifully by Nana Visitor, who I'm typically not a huge fan of. She's given some absolutely horrible performances in the course of the series. However, here she absolutely shines by playing both the main protagonist and antagonist of the episode, and she does such a great job as the Intendant. However, Avery Brooks really shines in this episode as well as the collaborator pirate Captain Sisko. Personally, I think Avery Brooks is much better at playing these insane type of characters than he is normal people. And you see him get several opportunities to do this throughout the series, and he shines every time. And I think this episode is the best example of that.
I don't care what's going on in ore processing. Fix my engine.
And then there's Garrick, whose character in this universe is probably bears the closest resemblance to his counterpart from our universe.
I do admire a well-tailored gown.
As you imagine, Garrick could have very well been just like this when he worked for the Cardassians in the past. However, they needed a Cardassian representative on the station to represent the Cardassian side of the Alliance, and he is the friendliest Cardassian in our normal universe, so having him be the first officer is a bit more opposite than having someone like Dukat, who is already full-on evil. Plus, at the start, it's interesting when he treats Bashir like shit, and later threatens to kill him when they're actually good friends on our side. In my opinion, this is one of the most memorable episodes of Deep Space Nine. It's a sequel to an original series episode, but it is so different from it and unique in its own right. Unlike The Next Generation's The Naked Now, which was just a carbon copy of its original series counterpart. Plus, this episode is probably my most quoted Star Trek episode, as this introduced us to Smiley.
Hello, Smiley. How are you?
It's Miles, Mr. Sisko.
I don't like Miles. That's why I named you Smiley.
In high school, I had a friend I thought looked like Miles O'Brien, so I started calling him Smiley, and every time I saw him, I'd go, Smiley! And my brother and I used to quote this episode all the time, saying things such as,
Please don't make me use some foolish euphemism.
And
Well, no. That's more creative than he usually gets.
It was delivered so well and it was so memorable that it really sticks in the brain. In my opinion, this is by far the best DS9 episode to explore the parallel universe, as I wasn't a huge fan of its sequels that just got worse and worse every year. The third season and fourth season ones were okay, I guess, but they changed the focus from Kira to Cisco, which I wasn't a huge fan of, and as I liked the concept of Kira having to face her evil double. Plus, they got a bit ridiculous in its characters, such as the pain-in-the-ass Bashir and the cartoon-like villain of Regent Worf. With this episode, I think they got the formula just right. My rating for Crossover is a 9. Excellent. This was a great episode, but not quite one of the best, because in the end it followed the same narrative structure as Mirror Mirror, of people simply trying to escape the mirror universe. However, I thought the Alice in Wonderland analogy was very apt, had it felt like two people trapped in a crazy nightmarish upside down world which they were happy to escape from. Although, one nitpicky thing I have is at the start of this episode, Kira says she's only familiar with Bajoran composers, and at the end of the episode makes an Alice in Wonderland reference. So if she not familiar with any alien composers, yet she knows Alice in Wonderland well enough to make a reference from it. But whatever. This episode had such outstanding performances and memorable dialogue and tense storytelling that it teetered on the brink of greatness, and it was definitely one of the best of the first two seasons. So that's it for my review of Crossover. If there's an episode you'd like me to review, just let me know by commenting below. And make sure you subscribe to keep up with all that, and thanks a lot for watching.